Welcome back to Tying That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham. This is my good friend, Ty Frank, and also good pal, Chrisjen Alexander.
What's up, man?
How are you, brother? How you doing? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we get started, we wanted to, on behalf of all the fans and people that love the Expanse, there's something we want to do for you.
Oh, wow.
Nah, just kidding. That was Ty's idea. He's like, man, we should rough him up in the beginning. You hurl rocks at Earth, there's going to be consequences.
I figured if we took an audience poll of the best way to spend 45 minutes with you, the audience would overwhelmingly vote for and beat the shit out of him.
All right, that's all right. I'm okay with that. My lawyer is standing right there.
I want to tell the story when I first met you. You and I studied acting at the same place for a long time.
Same coach.
Yeah, with the same coach. And I remember coming in one day, and it was in the middle of a scene, and you were on stage doing a scene. And I remember seeing this and watching it, and I thought it was a great scene, and it was great work. And then afterwards, I remember the coach and you were talking about the scene, and I saw you like defending your choices and having really smart, well thought out, articulate, things. And I was like, wow, that's a really smart actor. And this is
even back then he was not directable. So clear
Hashtag difficult across
not directable.
He has it clear.
Yeah, you haven't changed it all, man.
Yeah, and then cut to I see you on this. I'm like, hey man, we remember
right?
like that moment of like seeing each other and
it's interesting because it's like working with her is like having a shared lineage in a way. Like, you know that the people that work with her are invested and are...
Nancy Banks
is her name. She's amazing, pouring their heart in. And so it was interesting. Before even having met you, I already felt an affinity. I was like, okay, this is another one of those artists that's like in it with all of their being.
Right.
So
speaking of that...
Then I met you.
And then you're like, how did this guy slip through the cracks?
Well, and there were other connections too, because when we hired Chrisjen, immediately Kara G was like, oh, I love Chrisjen. I've worked with him on the stage a bunch. Like apparently you guys had worked together.
That wasn't really what she said. But
okay, I'm doing the nice version for the camera.
Okay, I get it.
But yeah, we it's really interesting that the training that Kara and I did, which was very different than what we had in common, was Japanese-based, very intense, very warrior-like training. We've remained friends. She's one of my closest people, but we came full circle with this project, both playing warriors who in a lot of ways mirror each other, but are going in completely different directions. So I don't think it's an accident that we have that shared training in common, but it's a trip. It's beautiful magic that we met up in this way.
Well, speaking of process and how did this role come to you, and how did you start to break it down? What was your process in bringing Marco to life and creating him?
Well, as I've said before with you, I think the Craigslist ad is what's responsible for me being on this show.
That was for another purpose. You're like, hey, if you're good at this, how about play Marco?
You'll just fish me in. Well, I was familiar with the show. Obviously, my friend Kara was already on it at that point. My first foray was into the books. And then basically what I've had to do all along, and it's hard to do this being on Twitter, but I've had to bracket a lot of the judgments of this human being. I literally had to remove even my own perception of who he is on the spectrum of good, bad, whatever, and just find a way to, apart from his actions, see him for the little seedling that he was in the belt that grew into what he was, and find a way to trace the trajectory of what his psychology was that led to this point. So it was really important for me to go way back to the beginning in order for him not to just be the two-dimensional archetype of what he is. And that's why to this day I still resist the labels of evil or bad, or especially the T word, because those easy labels betray the dimensions and the depth of humanity and the real injustices that lead to someone being able and being willing to do such horrendous things. And so I've had to be his champion in a lot of ways, and I think it was a real gift from the books to have insight into his psychology. Like, you guys planted some really beautiful seeds there that I just sort of ran with, and the most fulfilling thing about this for me, with Marco, has been that those seeds that you planted. I don't know if I've said this before, but I studied political philosophy, so I'm interested in the state of the world, and I'm interested in where we're heading on a bigger level, which apparently some other people in this room are also interested in, and so a lot of my frustrations and a lot of the injustices that were like firing me up, I poured into this guy, and like I really feel like as a society, for instance, we're taking a turn towards deeper and deeper narcissism, not just on an individual level, but on a collective level, in a way where we are becoming so separate from each other, like cancer cells are. Like cancer cells are egoistic and only concerned about themselves to the degree that they'll replicate to the detriment of the whole, a tumor, just like I will accumulate. And I feel like that's the direction that we're going in. So the seeds that you planted immediately is sort of like meshed with my feeling of like, yes, this man is a symbol of where we are headed if we do not check some of that narcissism that's going to a place where it cannot coexist with the whole of all humanity. It cannot coexist in a community. And so to me, that's cathartic for me, to pour in a lot of those feelings I have about society into Marco as a symbol.
It's interesting because Wes and I were talking to Dominique a little while ago, and one thing she mentioned is one of her favorite lines of this season is when Drummer is talking to Avasarala in a later episode, and she says, after centuries of oppression, Marco was inevitable.
Yeah.
That you made this.
Yeah.
You created this by grinding people down, by making them feel hopeless, making them feel like they didn't have a future. You created this thing.
Yeah.
The fact that Marco has valid points is a theme running through this season. That the anger that he has is justified anger. Now, the actions he takes may not be justified, but the anger that drives them.
Yeah.
What I think is fascinating is that when you have a karmic imbalance like that, in the way that Earth was treated the belt and what the belt went through, those rocks coming back is like a physical manifestation of that energy coming back.
Those are the chickens coming home to roost.
Those are the chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah.
Totally.
And what I love about The Expanse is that if Marco does inhabit the antagonistic position, but when you hear him speak and when you hear him talk, you're like, he's got a fucking point.
Yeah.
He's got a point. And I think, how far can we all be pushed to where we start making those decisions?
Yeah.
And I know, if I look at myself honestly, it's not too far. And and that's what is so fascinating about this character, is that he does these horrible things, but you have to look at him and say, that makes sense. It's motivated. It's fully justified. It's grounded in something that's true.
Yeah, man. And this is, I honor you guys and Rain and the producers and all the writers for allowing that complexity to remain unanswered and for that full spectrum to exist. Because what do you expect someone to do in the face of tyranny? Really, really, truly. Like, we have the easy answers that we might get from our textbooks or from the news or from our educational system, but the answers are really not that easy if you're willing to look outside of the power holders' status quo. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really go and look at the person who's suffering, what do you expect them to do? And this is what it comes down to with Marco, and what I've really, I hope that I've somehow been able to capture the heart that underlies all of this bullshit and mania and egoism and vanity and all of that stuff on top, is that in his heart of hearts, at the root of it, he is a young single father with a child, with a baby, and he vows that that baby will never have the experiences of injustice, oppression, and having his humanity betrayed and denied ever. He's like, okay, how many years do I have? In my lifetime, I will do nothing but invest in the fact that my son will not feel this denial of his humanity, and I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen for him. Now, is he the best father? No, but what I've constantly been trying to play with is that underneath it all is this love and this devotion, which you as a father must understand is like,
because
it's for him.
If there wasn't that love, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be as powerful.
I mean, I don't know if the fuel would be enough for him to be willing to carry the weight of what he's willing to carry. Like, it's literally for that son. And there's a lot psychologically in the way for him that prevents him from being able to express that love. And we see a lot of that in season 6. And I love that plays out. And we really get to the archetype of, and it's really like fathers and sons. It's like, and it's really like men. It's really like, there's a difficulty in expressing what we really feel because of our notions of what masculinity is. There's a generational gap in the emotional intelligence to be able to connect in ways that we really want to. So we go get a drink, or we go fishing, or we like sports or whatever. But I really feel like we were getting close to capturing the essence of that archetype, like fathers and sons and generational gap, like everything that stands in the way of expressing that love, even though it may be your root mission, which it is for Marco.
Well, and I also think I agree with what you were just saying, and especially as far as the
everything
you were just saying.
Thank you.
100%.
For the record.
What your insight is that I think is interesting, and just triggered in my head, is nothing stays pure. So I think there probably was a pure moment for Marco at the beginning when he sees this baby and he says, "I will make the world a better place for you." A lot of things happen, and there's a lot of road goes past, and a lot of speed bumps, and
a lot of compromises,
and so the purity of that moment goes away. But I think the triggering moment can still be a pure moment, and I can absolutely see that with Marco, that he starts out with this pure intention: I will make the world a better place for you, and he maybe loses sight of some of the reasons why he started it, and the complexity of his feelings for his son change and warp some of it. But I think the starting point is that pure moment. I think he held that kid and he said, "Oh, I'm going to fix the world for you." And everything that follows comes from that.
Yeah, totally, man. And I think that a lot of the shit that gets in the way is actually, like, there's a whole field of research into colonial psychology, and that's something that I happen to be familiar with and was able to like infuse into this, is that in order for him to go from that pure feeling of wanting to make the world a better place for his son to actually being the person that could carry that out, he had to have the bandwidth and the intelligence and the self-awareness in order to architecturally become the perfect example of that colonial psychology. Like, he literally had to understand what success meant to that infrastructure. And he had to mimic, understand, become that thing. And I mean, this answers the tattoo question that a lot of people ask over and over again, is that this human being has the intelligence and the capacity to become somebody that is worthy of being idolized, even within the colonial model. But he had to contort and metamorphosize himself, code shift, understand the difference in psychologies between not just his people, but the people that are ruling over him, in order to meet them, in order to come face to face and not just emulate the colonial system, but take it down. And that level of contortion, that level of willingness to deny whatever your essence is and become what you need to become in order to carry out your bigger mission, that's some real like fuckery at the psychological level.
It's a behavior we see over and over again. And in fact, it's a behavior we saw even in season 1 of the show, which is Detective Miller taking on the affectation of Earthers. Because for him, growing up as a poor kid on series, the symbols of power, the symbols of success were all Earth things. So the hat and the clothes and the manner of speaking and trying to hide his belterness. Because you're trying to take the power for yourself that you see in these other people, and the ways in which that sort of warps people.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because we love to talk about process, and so how did what you're saying now and the choices that you made and how you dress and how you walk and how you talk, how did you make those choices to bring Marco to life in that way? With no tattoos, go into the why you don't have any tattoos and
I incessantly harass Ty and Daniel and Narain because this is the type of person who sees himself as larger than life in terms of self-perception. Mm-hmm. So that means, and he is the person, like we have just been discussing, who's contorted himself and architecturally constructed himself in a very self-aware way to become who he is. And so every single thing is intentional. Every single hair on his head is intentionally placed, and not just intentionally placed in general, specifically. He code shifts constantly, and this is something that I hope comes through, or maybe with rewatching can be picked up on, is that every single person that Marco engages with, he is code switching between, because he has a keen awareness of human psychology, and what others may call manipulation, he himself experiences as metamorphosis. This person requires this. For me to achieve what I want to achieve from this person, I need to be aware of their psychology and change according to what they need to bring about that outcome, right?
Yeah.
And that includes whether or not he has tattoos, or how his hair is placed, what his facial hair is like, what his accent is like, how he carries his body. There's something really animal about him, and I already felt that from the way that you guys depicted him in the books. So that was something that I had so much fun playing with, is like, how is he in his like visceralness using his body to specifically get what he wants from this human being, as opposed to that human being, as opposed to that human being. So he's a piece of work. He's constantly changing. And so of course his hair or facial hair or his clothes are gonna be different. Like I love, and he loves, the harness that he wears. Like that is like, every time I put that on, that was like, that was one of my clicks, is like, well, and he definitely wears it in times that are not appropriate. Like I swear he sleeps with it, because it's the feeling. It's the feeling of like what he's trying to achieve. And what's cool about season 6 is that for the first time we start seeing the cracks in his portrayal.
I want to talk about his fatal flaw.
Yeah.
But before that though, I remember how excited you got when I came to you and I said, what do you think if Marco keeps Ashford's guns?
Yeah.
Like those two big sort of self-propelled guns.
Yeah, man.
And you wind up with one, and Josiah winds up with one.
Yeah, man.
But I said, what do you think? And he just, like, his eyes lit up. He's like, of course he would keep them. It's the trophies of his dead enemy,
Totally.
Like it's such a status move of like, I have this badass gun and I took it from the baddest motherfucker in the belt, and now it's mine.
And then already planning ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, what would Drummer feel if she saw me
holding the gun? Yeah.
Like 8 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead.
But I think I want to mention about his fatal. So, and this drives a lot of the scenes that are coming up in this episode, is Marco's fatal flaw is rage. And he makes a choice in this episode driven entirely by rage and this need to punish people for having gone against him, that really begins to start his slow topple. That choice that he makes, that I must kill the Rocinante. There's no reason to do it. They're not in our way. But these people have defied me and embarrassed me, and they must die.
And that's a key word, isn't it? The embarrassment.
So in this scene, when you go to the Rocinante and you are face to face with Holden, what does Marco think of Holden? What is his point of view?
I mean, to answer that question, we have to go to Naomi. Naomi, I really believe, is one of the few pure experiences of his life. I don't think he ever expected, and we saw some of his, like, he actually spoke some truth when they came face to face, because the stakes were that high that he allowed himself to pull those facades away for a moment when faced with her and almost feeling naked before her. We see that he did not expect for that rupture to happen. He even says so much. Yeah. And I think that he would never use the word regret. I don't think he believes in regrets, but if there were anything in his life that he regrets, is the loss of Naomi. And I think he's never had an experience like that before in his life. And I don't think he's the type of person to let that go, ever. And so if the person that scoops her up in that moment is an earther who has been doing what he's doing, he's definitely gonna have some strong feelings towards that human being, for sure. And it's so cool in this episode to see that moment where they go eye to eye for the first time. Because when I first read that in the books, I was like, yes, that is so good, because there's something mirroring about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think you guys even say, like, it's almost like looking at yourself. A less good-looking version, but
yeah,
of course. That was Marco, wasn't me. I love Steven, and he's beautiful. Just kidding.
Where do the lines begin? Where does Marco end?
I've been detoxing. I can't even tell you. I call Kara up. And I'm like, I need to do some detoxing.
Yeah. Do you walk around your apartment in your harness and like give it one? Talk about the decision that you made when you revealed your son to Holden in that scene.
Yeah. Again, like everything this piece of work does is intentional. And I don't know if he even would have made that call if it wasn't for that plan and the forethought to have placed him right there with that camera, not the other camera, that camera.
Yeah.
It's all strategic. It's all strategic. And he would not go into battle without a backup plan. He's the kind of person.
You must always have a knife in the darkness.
Yeah, and you must have a backup knife and a backup knife for that backup knife and a backup, So he had a plan. If he were to ever go face to face in like a tantric meeting with that guy, there will be something to give a little stab, and it's that. And he also knows that Naomi's probably watching too. Mm-hmm. So there's multiple things achieved from that one slide over of his chair. And I love that because it's so subtle, but
It's that
so
moment
harsh.
of, hey Naomi, your boyfriend's about to kill your kid.
Exactly.
And it's such a middle finger.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to talk about is that what do you think, Marco, how is he different from when we first see him to the end?
Wow. Something that's been really important to me is to try and capture, and as you know, it's like there's a lot of moving pieces and you actually don't know how things are going to be edited in the end. So to build a mega arc is sometimes challenging in this medium, but my intention was always to really show how he goes from a freedom fighter who finds that position as military leader, who evolves to his wet dream come true on the throne, as I keep joking, which is where we meet him at the beginning of this season. And this is the part that I'm really grateful that we get to show, is that moment where, like, especially because even though he is a part of the oppressed class, he is still working within a capitalist matrix that treats you and makes your identity revolve around what you achieve, right? And so his whole achievement, it's not about who you are, you don't have inherent value, you are accomplishment based. And so what happens when you've dedicated your whole life to achieving X and then you get it? What next? And so we find him at the top of season 6 in the middle of an existential crisis because his dream just came true.
But did he get it? It's not fully complete.
It's not fully completed, but he's now switching from military leader to governor of the socio-political system, and that is not interesting to him. He has been accomplishment based and adrenaline based for so long. So once you get to that point, and it's all the bureaucratic shit, this is not what he signed up for, and he didn't develop the tools for that. And so we meet him in an existential crisis of a what next? What is my worth now? And the beautiful thing about starting the season that way, and I think it's brilliant, is that from that point, we just start seeing the cracks in his psychology. We see his fatal flaw. We see how he handles the loss of control one layer at a time, and then the loss to degrees of his son's affection. falling, like this is what happens with teenagers and fathers and all the time, is like, oh, you start seeing what your dad really is like, right?
See him in the daylight.
Yeah, you see him in the daylight. And so to lose that perception, that admiration from the only person who you love now in your life, that alone takes a huge toll on him.
That's fascinating to me. You know, the him knowing at every minute, every second of what the next move is, of what he wants, and he's striving and so strategic. But the one thing he didn't plan for is when he gets what he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
And how he's going to continue from that. And so now he's adrift.
Yeah.
Because he had this want and this need pulling him forward.
Yeah.
And now he's adrift.
Yeah.
Well, it's that whole thing. Dogs chasing cars. What do you do when you finally catch one?
Yeah.
He caught the car and he's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And everything up until that moment has been, since he is a self-made human, under your full control. There's very little in his control in season 6.
Yeah.
And so I'm really pumped for everyone to see what lies, the cracks in his psychology, and the inner child of this crazy mofo who is constantly showing us different facades that are slowly coming off in this season. And yeah, it's been an honor to play this complex dude. And I hope people can get past the easy labels and like see what's under there, because I think that might be helpful for seeing the people in the world who are oppressed and are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that their children don't suffer in the same way they have.
Well, thanks for coming to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is for Ashford!
I'm just jumping in on it.
I accept it all.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. That was episode 3, season 6, and we'll be back with the wonderful Kara G. Thanks, Keon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Bye, Ty.